and welcome to Tees Valley Sport. I'm your host, Danny Reid, and on this episode of Meet the Team, we have Lou. Lou is the People and Places Officer for Darlington. Lou, welcome to the studio.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
It's great having you here, Lou. Great having you. Lou, we're going to jump straight into it. Can you tell us a little bit of your story about how you joined the team of Tees Valley Sport?
Yeah, I can cram probably the last 40 odd years into a few minutes, hopefully, and get that out of the way for you quickly, Danny. I did sport as a kid, had a reasonable time as a competitive swimmer. The family all smelt the chlorine, and I kind of drifted into that, and that's what we did. Drifted through school reasonably well academically. Same at college. Thought, well, all my mates are going to uni, so I'll try and find a degree I might want to do. Found a sports studies degree at the Newcastle Polytechnic, as it was back in the day. From there, got a job as a trainee recreation manager at Middlesbrough Council. Stayed at Middlesbrough Council from 1990 through to 2015.
That's a big stint.
It was. I went from tracksuit to suit to desk to computer to a bit more casual to not doing sport, managing people, and ultimately tearing down the empire that people had built up because we went through austerity measures. Tough times for the council. Took voluntary redundancy in 2015. Had a year of playing about.
Excellent.
And then
Excellent.
a couple of maternity covers, the second one of which was with Tees Valley Sport. And since then I've stayed with them.
Right, so it was
I'm trying to think now, how many years? 15, since about 2017.
Wow, that's another.
Yeah, I'm quite
good
long-standing now.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a reputation there, haven't you?
Stayer.
Yeah.
Keeper.
Brilliant. I love that. So you almost kind of like fell into like the role that you're in now.
Yeah, I mean, I say this role specifically, when it came about through the restructure of the organisation, it was really of interest from sort of what my beliefs in physical activity and the value that I perceive it has. But historically, as a young person, I was never like, oh, I really want to do that job or I really want to do this job. I've done some great jobs and enjoyed them and been fortunate in that pathway. But until I say this role, it's not been like that's the job.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. So, Lou, you're the People and Places Officer for Darlington. Mm-hmm. Now, what actually is that role? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can tell you a lot more than I could have done a year or so ago when I started it, because it has been quite organic and I've had the luxury, I suppose, some liberty in shaping the role. But essentially, it's been, I describe it as you go into the place, which is Darlington, identifying areas of need, whether that's through inequality, deprivation, lack of access to things, and generally hooking up with organisations that are trying to help people, support people, and then see where physical activity can be part of their intervention, part of their pathway of support, and where it can make a difference to people.
So how do you find these people?
I mean, initially it was a lot of web trawling, finding organisations, contacting them, going and speaking to people. From that one contact, you'd make some more contacts. I mean, through sort of my work historically and through Tees Valley Sport, we had some organisations that we knew, certainly within the local authority. They would pass us on to other people. And, I mean, there was a point of frustration. We thought, I'm getting nowhere, I'm just talking to people, I'm not doing anything. But then you kind of realise that you need to do that groundwork first. So if, I wouldn't say we've unearthed organisations, but we've talked to charities, to third sector, to local authority organisations, to sports providers, to private gym provision, and started to link those organisations up.
Now, looking back a little bit from your time at the council, from when you started at the council to your role now, have you seen much of a difference when it comes to people and places in places like Darlington? Is there much of a difference between Darlington and Middlesbrough, for example, in the things that you're looking at?
Well, very different time frames. But yeah, I mean, people have a perception of Darlington as being, I think across Tees Valley, people have perception of Darlington as being kind of the posh relation, if you like, kind of the leafy suburb. But when you get into the place and become more aware of the place, there's some pockets of real hardship and deprivation, and there is right across Tees Valley. So I'll say, though, there's local differences between Middlesbrough and Darlington, and between Hartlepool and Stockton. Somewhere across the spectrum, that real need and that, I suppose, that almost a sadness, really, that there is that demand. You know, there's so many food banks, there's so much supportive provision, there's so much housing support, and it is sad that it's still needed, but that's where we are.
Yeah. I know I came along to have a little chin rag with some of the guys at one of the projects you're doing, and it was, like you just said, they're really quite sad that these things are needed to be put into places, but so brilliant that the work's being done.
Oh, yeah, there's some fantastic organisations helping. I've had my eyes open to, one, how much need there is, but how much desire there is to address that need.
Yeah. And when we say need, what type of needs would you try to identify?
For us, it's hard to say it's one specific element, because there's generally that connectivity of whether it's deprivation, lack of access, poor education attainment, leads to joblessness, leads to cost of living pressures, which then leads to mental health problems. And it's this whole kind of circle or spiral. And it's very, very rarely, well, I'd say it's probably never someone's fault that they end up in that position. And it's just something to break that cycle that can start people finding a pathway to get back to what we'd consider a more regular lifestyle.
Amazing. Now, when it comes to like projects that you work with, being part of the Tees Valley Sport, we're part of the active partnership 43 across the UK. How do you feel that the approach of like the test and learn, the mentality that we've taken on recently as an organisation, has helped formulate your role to where it is now?
I say the learning's ongoing. I mean, an example of that, if you want me to give you one,
please, yeah.
I started a project around food poverty and physical inactivity, and worked with a church group. Oh, sorry, touch your mic. Worked with a church group in identifying people who use their food provision, and they also included some people who'd had addiction issues, and were in a rehab program. And the learning for me was that actually focusing on food poverty was too immediate, and that's too big a time and place pressure for someone to deal with. That becomes your absolute focus.
Yeah.
If you're wondering where your next meal or your family's meal is coming from, that's consuming. But what the physical activity element was able to support was the mental health issues and the anxieties that came from being in that position. So whatever people in the programme were experiencing in their lives, it was causing an anxiety, which then the physical activity intervention helped to alleviate.
Right, so it's like bringing things like all the way around.
And we've shared that across the partnership. I mean, you can go onto the Active Partnership portal and sort of put a thread about work that you're doing, if anyone else has done it previously, so you can learn from them. And I've also sort of fed back on that and said, yeah, it was too sharp a focus to go for food poverty.
Yeah.
But I think everyone who works across the partnerships knows that physical activity supports mental health. Yeah.
I think it's really good that we're able to do the test and learn style approach to working, so we're able to go, this worked and this didn't work, and we're able to take the learning from it and move forward with it, as opposed to like other organisations that might be like, right, well, that didn't work, scrap the whole thing, let's go and try something else. I think it's really important that we're able to feed back into the active partnership as well and find out what's working in different areas, and having that big support network, like striving towards these different goals, will really make it much easier for us in the long term to be able to, I suppose, help everyone get active as much as possible really in the areas. So Lou, earlier on you mentioned a little bit about when you were younger you did swimming and things like that. How do you keep yourself active now? What's your go-to?
Okay. I try and do a bit of variety. I do still swim couple of days a week. I don't compete anymore. I went back to competition when I was 40, did some masters events and realised all the things I didn't like as a kid, like sitting around the poolside all weekend, getting nervous, sort of being isolated, doing all that training in a lane, not talking to people, were the same things that didn't appeal as a 40-year-old,
Right.
and probably much more so. And essentially, it was the waiting around a poolside for an event that's going to take you less than 2 minutes, and sometimes being away for a whole weekend doing it. But I do still swim. That's helped sort of an issue out of having my back. Love cycling. Get out on the bike socially. Try and get out 2-3 times a week, weather permitting.
So what type of like cycling is it? Just like a mountain bike?
Oh no, scared of that. Road biking.
Road biking. That's even scarier.
Well, it depends on the drivers. Your terrain's a bit more comfortable, but yeah, there's some great drivers, and it's probably the minority who are poor, but they're the ones that nearly hit you, so you remember them more. I get out on the bike. I do a couple of gym sessions a week, and just try and mix it up. I know it's a support for me. I know it's a go-to, and I think that helps me understand how much it can help people who are in need of some sort of intervention, how good it can make them feel. But I also realise how hard it can be for people who haven't got that sort of history of being involved.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's that full circle, isn't it? The importance of understanding how important it is to be active, but then how hard it can be to get back into activity as well. And that is a barrier. So when we're looking at people and places, it's not just, this place here needs a new football place. It's really looking at the core values of the mental health, the physical health, and bringing it all together as a one package, I suppose. Yeah,
and you said before, it's not assuming what people want. It's finding out what people might like and helping them to develop that enjoyment from it.
Completely. Lou, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.